Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to piece together the powerful story of one family, and we're going to do it using just the paper trail they left behind. You're about to see how a bunch of certificates, census records, and old registers can tell a life story of incredible resilience.
So where do we begin? Well, funny enough, not at the beginning. Our investigation actually starts with a death certificate from 1915. It's a pretty stark document, but it's the key that unlocks this entire story.
Okay, so here it is. This piece of paper tells us about a man named Alexander Anderson. He's 43, a seaman from Glasgow, Scotland. But look at where he died, Portland, Maine. His story ends tragically, thousands of miles from home. And the cause of death is right there in that cold official script, drowning after falling from his vessel. Just like that, in a single moment, a wife in Scotland became a widow, and his kids lost their father. Such a sudden, terrible end.
And that's it, right? That's the question that just kicks off this entire investigation. What on earth happened to the family he left all the way back in Scotland? To figure that out, well, we have to go back in time.
All right, let's hit rewind. We're going to see what life was like for the Anderson family in Glasgow before this awful tragedy struck.
First up, the year 1900. And what do we find? A marriage certificate. Here we see a young Alexander Anderson, who was a spirit merchant back then, starting his life with Jeannie Wallace Bowman. This is it, the official beginning of their family.
And this was their world, a noisy, bustling, industrial Glasgow right at the turn of the 20th century. This city is the backdrop for those early, hopeful years of their life together.
And boom, just a year later, in 1901, they welcomed their first son, James Wallace Anderson. This little baby boy, born on St. George Street, he's the person whose incredible life we're about to follow.
But you know, when you lay out the timeline like this, man, you see the hardship. Long before Alexander's death at sea, this family had already been through so much loss. I mean, look at this. They lost one son, Alexander, when he was just a year old, and then another, Archibald, at age 5. This family was already shaped by grief.
So then, 1915 happens. Tragedy strikes again when his father dies. And suddenly, 14-year-old James is the man of the house. He has to find his own way in a world that had already taken so much from him.
And what does he do? This is the part that really gets me. He chooses a path that's exactly like his late father's. The very sea that had claimed his dad, that's where James decides he's going to make his living.
And look, we've got the proof right here. By 1921, he's 20 years old, and the census records have him working as a steward right here on this ship, the SS Saxonia. He was literally following in his father's wake.
But his story doesn't stop there at sea, not by a long shot. James was about to build a whole new life for himself, not back in Scotland, but on land, down in England. He found love. And think about this timing. Just 3 years after losing his dad, when he's only 17 years old, James marries Ivy Grace Estelle in Essex. They started building a family of their own, creating a new anchor in his life.
And what a family it turned out to be. Over the next 15 years or so, James and Ivy had 6 kids. You kind of have to wonder, right? After losing 2 of his brothers and his father, maybe he was just determined to build this big, stable family that he'd lost when he was a boy.
Now fast forward a bit. The world is on the brink of another huge war. And James, he's left the sea behind. This 1939 register shows us his new job, a cordite production hand at the Waltham Abbey Royal Gunpowder Mills. A pretty critical role for the war effort.
And this wasn't just any factory job. His work was absolutely vital. The factory he worked at was the only producer in the UK of something called RDX, a key explosive used in the famous bouncing bombs from the Dambusters raid. So the son of a seaman was now helping to protect the entire nation right from the home front.
So let's step back for a second. When you take all these different pieces of paper, all the certificates, the census forms, the registers, and you put them all together, the full picture of this extraordinary life finally comes into focus.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It says it all, doesn't it? His father's life, tragically cut short at 43, but James, who went through so much loss as a kid, he lived to be 78. He didn't just survive, he thrived. He built a family, a whole legacy. It's just an incredible story of resilience.
And then after all those official records, we get this, just a little snippet of a personal memory from a relative. And this one sentence, it just transforms James from a name on a page into a real person.
You can almost picture him in that room, a man who's lived this full, long life.
And that's really what it leaves you with, isn't it? We've just pieced together an entire life story from some old bits of paper. It really makes you wonder, how many other amazing stories of survival and strength are just waiting to be discovered, hidden in the quiet details of our own family's pasts?